Hello everyone, it's Pastor Howie here with another edition of Readings and Thoughts from the Scriptures. During Lent, we've been following the daily readings produced by the Revised Common Lectionary, and that's the case in this video as well. We'll be looking at Psalm 107, verses 1 through 16, Exodus 15, 22 through 27, and for the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. So, Psalm 107 is the first psalm in the fifth section of the book of Psalms, and we will be looking at Psalm 107 essentially in its entirety, verses 1 through 16. And it starts out with praise and an exhortation to give thanks to the Lord, and that's how it starts. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the foe, those he gathered from the lands, from east and west, from north and south. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty. Their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Important to remember that based on what we're going to be reading in Exodus next. Some sat in darkness, in utter darkness, prisoners suffering in iron chains, because they rebelled against God's commands and despised the plans of the Most High. So he subjected them to bitter labor. They stumbled. There was no one to help. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. So you see the pattern of Psalm 107. We looked at some of Psalm 107 in last week's videos. There's a pattern. All these examples of trials and tribulations that come upon the people of Israel and come upon us from time to time. They should drive us to cry to the Lord rather than to look within ourselves and cry about our circumstances. Verse 14, he brought them out of darkness, the utter darkness, and broke away their chains. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he breaks down gates of bronze and cuts through bars of iron. So he provides for us, he frees us from slavery, and he is a great God. And so we should give thanks to him in all of our circumstances. The circumstances that come may be perceived as testings, but ultimately they produce the fruit of more closely walking with the one who can deliver us and provide for us. So let's look at Exodus 15, 22 through 27. The NIV titles this section, The Waters of Marah and Elim. And so we read about God providing through Moses. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. That word means bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord. It sounds like the theme of Psalm 107. And the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. Miracle. God does miracles. He does miracles through human beings, like Moses. He did a lot of miracles through Moses, and he does a lot of miracles through human beings even today. But ultimately, It is God's power that is at work. There the Lord issued a ruling and instruction for them and put them to the test. He said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. So one spring was bitter, but by the power of God through the man of God, Moses, it was made able to drink. And then he led them to a place where there was plenty of water, and they were able to abide for a while. Let's look at Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Don't know who the author of Hebrews is, but we do know what the theme is. And it's clearly written to Jewish Christians, Jewish believers, who are in harsh and hard circumstances and being tempted by the circumstances, but also by people who are encouraging them to leave this Christianity stuff and come back to Judaism. And so the writer to Hebrews spends the first couple of chapters comparing Jesus to the angels. And Jesus is far superior to the angels. And here, the writer to Hebrews begins to compare Jesus to Moses. And the heading in the NIV of chapter 3 is, Jesus is greater than Moses. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters, who share in the heavenly calling is to follow Christ. Fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself. You know, build a house and people will ask you, who's the contractor? Because this is a really nice house. And so the builder gets more honor than the house. For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Moses was faithful as a servant in all God's house, bearing witness to what would be spoken by God in the future. But Christ is faithful as the Son over God's house, and we are his house, if indeed we hold firmly to our confidence and the hope in which we glory. Don't turn back. If your circumstances become difficult, turn to God. Ask him for help. If you find yourself in need of things and things aren't working out or the resources don't seem to be there, ask God. Ask God for a miracle. You may not see a miracle, but ask him. He still is the same God, and he may very well produce a miracle in your life during a hard time. But always remember, there is no name given under heaven or earth in which we should trust except the name of Jesus Christ. Greater than Moses, greater than us, greater than the devil who would tempt us, and greater than any kind of religion, even Christianity as a religion, as long as we focus on Jesus and not traditions. That's what I have for you today. May God bless you. Glorify Christ.